What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the Kingsland today, and today we are here with Limbs. It's great to have you guys back. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
Thank
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Congrats on all the success. Your latest record, Father Son, is absolutely awesome, and it's fair to say you had a busy 2018 with a kick-ass tour with Underoath, Veil of Maya, and now here with Currents. Let's just give a rundown on how everything's been.
First off, that Underoath run was insane. That was by far, obviously, the biggest tour we've ever done. Everybody on that run was hands down probably the nicest group of people. Honestly, the same goes for this Currents run as well. Every crew member, everybody in the band, it just feels like one big family. It's awesome. Yeah.
No weird drama or anything.
Thank
you know,
God.
it's just everything's been really smooth because there's definitely been tours where it's been kind of sucky.
But whatever. That's kind of how it goes, I guess.
Yeah. What I've noticed with the Father Son record is that this record was very diverse and had a lot of different sounds, from heavy songs to melodic songs. Was that kind of like a preconceived idea making this record, or did it just kind of happen that way?
Yeah, it was more or less. We thought about it, yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think the direction that it took wasn't necessarily thought out completely. It was just more so like we had an idea and we executed it how it came natural. It just all came natural. I don't know how else to put it. It wasn't like specific ideas were preconceived. It was just the idea of mixing different sounds with hardcore.
Yeah.
Like kind of like our roots, I guess.
Like we're
and just
pretty
seeing
much
what comes of it, you know.
We're pretty much all fans of like pretty much the same music in a way. And what really, I think, inspired the record is, like, you know, like old Norma Jean, you know, Underoath, which is kind of like a given. And then, but like we were like, okay, what if we did like Radiohead type stuff, or like more atmospheric, but like not like super typical atmospheric. I don't know. It kind of just flowed naturally for us, I feel like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what I was curious about when it comes to a band that has very heavy and very melodic songs, is it a different emotion you guys feel playing these songs live? Like, do you feel angrier playing the heavier stuff, or feel more sedated playing the lighter stuff?
Kind of, yeah. I would say so. I think I don't know, the hardcore type of stuff that we've always written had never really left, so the emotions for that are still very much the same. But I think it's cool to, with the lighter stuff, especially the stuff that is more Radiohead-ish, is like it's more vibey on stage. It just brings a whole different like feel to the crowd and to the stage.
I feel like,
and I think that everybody can really feel that in the band too. It's like once we hit like that break in the title track on Father Son, it's like everybody's just kind of like eyes closed and they're just vibing on stage.
Dude, yeah, honestly, I feel like,
fun.
especially when those softer parts hit, that's kind of like the most calm that I feel.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's like playing music or not playing music, that moment right there is like it. Like, it feels like it takes a long time, but like in a good way. Like, it's just peaceful. It's nice. And then the whole rest of the set, when it's chaotic, I'm just blacked out, just feeling it.
It's honestly it's almost like the whole set just builds up to the last two songs, because we end with Fed into Father Son during the set, and it's like the whole set is just like go go go, and then once we get to that, it's like it's just a nice break in pace.
Yeah.
One, for practical reasons, so we can actually breathe. And it, you know, changes it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, another thing I was kind of curious about with the songwriting process, being that this record was so experimental, was it fair to say that trying new things is not necessarily difficult for you guys because you have so many different elements?
Honestly, I think that it's hard for everybody. Trying to mix anything with hardcore is always gonna be hard, because it's just like if it doesn't mesh, if you don't mesh it well together, it's not gonna sound good.
Yeah.
You know, no one's gonna be into it. There's like a fine line between just mixing genres together as opposed to blending them together. And I think it's more about blending genres together if you're trying to write an experimental record, as opposed to just throwing tons of different styles into an album. So like the question was like, for us, was it hard? I would say yes, personally, because you know it added a whole nother layer to our music than what it was before. And you know, I think if anybody listening heard our EP Sleep, it was very much just hardcore, like melodic hardcore, and then bringing this other element into play on the new record, it was like everyone kind of had to change gears a little bit and like really think like, okay, how can we make this sound good together, you know?
Even down to like song placements and stuff like that.
And song placement that's
a huge thing.
Really important for the album as well, and because you want it to be paced well. Correctly, you know, you want people to listen to it front to back and be like, wow, that all sounds really good together. It makes sense together, like song after song, you know. So I think this record was a lot more challenging than the last,
for sure,
two.
It's fair to say too, because you kind of just answered the next question, that Father Son wasn't just like a follow up to the Sleep EP. It was completely its own entity, right?
It was, and really just like there was maybe a handful of riffs that we had from Sleep, like that we had like just on like, you know, that we saved or whatever that we were planning on using.
Kind of rehashed them.
We rehashed a bunch of them. There were some riffs that it's like we maybe kept a tiny bit and then redid all of them to fit the feel of the rest of the record.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean it's we started almost with nothing when it came to that.
And I think too, like, it not being, sorry, just to add, I don't know, I don't want to go over time.
No, go.
Okay.
No. As long as you like.
Sometimes I can be a little bit too talkative with things like this.
Please, I like that.
But just to add, like you asking, it's not so much a follow up, it's like something else. I feel like that's just how it should be in general. For me personally, I feel like if a band just puts out another record that kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't sound like progress to me necessarily. Like, if I like it or not, that's a different story. That's fine if it's a follow up, but I feel like every record for a band, you should hear them making progress in a sense where it's not like, oh, it's just a continuation of the last record with some new elements. It should be like something like they should totally step up their game.
I feel like that is a great point, especially when it comes to like hardcore bands or like any type of heavy band. Because like, you know, if you're listening to like Ben Howard or like Fleet Foxes or something that's like that specific genre, it's kind of fine if it's somewhat the same thing and whatnot. But I feel like in hardcore music, you really do need to just like keep pushing it, especially if you want to stand out, because there's so many bands, which is fine, but there's so many bands where it's just like the same thing over and over and over again. And I think it's really important if you want to stay relevant, especially nowadays where there's bands everywhere constantly releasing music, is you have to just stay. And like, not even just the music part, I'm like branding, the way you present yourself in person and online. Like you really need to like stand out.
You need to carve your own niche.
You need to carve your own path essentially, and you know, just try and stay ahead of the curve without being pompous about it.
And you know, you brought up like a really good point that kind of led me into the next question, because you know, hardcore is like a genre that's brought in so much. Like, we interviewed Agnostic Front earlier, who's considered to be like the granddaddies of hardcore, but we also interviewed Walls of Jericho, but we also interviewed Twitching Tongues, we interviewed Harm's Way. All these bands are considered hardcore bands. How do you define How do you define hardcore?
If you want me to get really cheesy about it,
please do.
I feel like hardcore, just like how punk is, hardcore is, and I don't know if I'll get backlash for this, but I feel like hardcore is more of a statement, and it's like
Harm's Way said the same thing. So
yeah, well,
We're doing it right.
Yes. No. No, I just feel like, you know, it's like with any music. It's like, how do you want to present the topics that you choose to sing about in music? Do you want to present it in pop music? Do you want to present it in hardcore music? And then depending on which way you want to present that comes a certain type of emotion. You know, I feel like this is kind of hard for me to explain. I don't know how
That's
much,
a tough
how
question.
deep to get with it.
Get deep. That's what this channel's all about.
Yeah, well, it's just like, you know, hardcore is a lot. It's very emotional music, and I don't care what anybody says. It's very emotional.
Definitely.
But it's emotional in a sense where like people are like literally hitting each other in a pit in the audience. So it's like when people feel that energy on stage, they're feeling that raw emotion. And if they're moshing, they literally agree with what the lyrics are. Like they can relate to whatever they're saying. Yeah. That's why you have people shouting at shows like lyrics back to the vocalist, or like really anywhere too. I mean, it happens in pop music too. It happens with anything. But I just think that depending on what genre of music you're in, at least to me anyways, that kind of like the correct emotions will be portrayed on stage. Like pop music is going to be more mellow. Hardcore music is going to be more radical of like an emotion, you know?
Do you try to get like the audience to kind of feel a similar emotion that you guys are feeling, or is there kind of room for people to sort of feel their own ideas and more room for interpretation?
I personally kind of do whatever. Like, I don't know, like, because we've played handfuls of shows that nobody does anything. Like, they just stand there the whole time. And whether people are just standing there the whole time or they're actually making a pit to our music, like, I'm going to do the same thing every night. Because it's how I worship in a way, you know? And that's just how it comes out. Like, you know, you have bands that, like, have planned moves, planned things, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think with us, especially me, it's like I just do it. I do whatever, whether it be like dancing or like tapping my toes or literally just like full on banging my head. Dude, I think the Chariot called it like stepping on raindrops or something like that. But yeah, like it's just how it comes out, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, oh my God, that freaking horn. But and I have two more questions for you guys, because being that hardcore music has such an emphasis on the live presence and like, you know, trying to get engage with the audience. How different of a fulfillment is playing these songs like live versus in a studio or in a practice space? Is it a completely different type of experience?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so just recording the record, it's like you want everything to be perfect in a sense. There's lots of things going on outside right now. Yeah.
What is that?
Just when you're recording, you want lots of things. You want everything to be perfect, you know? Yeah. And whether or not, it just depends on the sound that you're going for. Like, if you're going for more of like a Norma Jean Chariot vibes, like, you're going to want to play it a little bit more thrashy. Not everything is going to be as perfect, but you're still going to want to get like that perfect take.
Yeah, there's still, whether it's just noise or not, there's still the perfect take.
So being in the studio, just based off the last, like, all the times that I've tracked drums for the band, it's like when I'm in there, it's like I'm hitting a million times harder, because you have to hit hard for this kind of music in the studio, and I'm way more concentrated on what I'm doing. So it's almost like shows can be physically and mentally draining all in their own regard, more so physical, but I feel like in the studio it's like 110% physically draining and 110% mentally draining, because you want everything to be perfect. I feel like shows, it's kind of like
It's more organic.
You can mess up and it's like that's a bummer, but whatever. But like,
well, I
in
mean,
the studio, it's
you don't
like,
you don't want to mess up,
No.
but like if it happens, it's not as big a deal as like if you're in the studio, because then you're gonna have to take that take again.
Yeah,
you know,
especially because you're playing right now at a venue, and the last time I saw you guys, you're playing at a venue with like no barrier. People could jump up on the stage and crowd kill all they want. But then you played at a show with Underoath, which I'd imagine, because I just saw them in Times Square, there's a barrier, and security practically gives you a cavity search when you go in those venues. So I'd imagine that, being that it has such an emphasis on the live presence and audience participation, it's also a completely different vibe depending on the type of show you're playing too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be if you, I don't know, you can only personally, I only let that affect it to a certain extent. Like even we played a casino show and like with Underoath, and I was still went in the pit. Like it's just one of those things where there might be a barrier, but like I don't know.
There are limits. It's just like
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a perfect example. The other day we were in Baltimore and we played at this place called Sidebar. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that place, but it's a tiny bar, like in a basement in the middle of downtown Baltimore. And like loading in was a nightmare because we had to go down steps. Yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. There was nowhere to put any of the gear.
Yeah.
But everybody in our band was just like
Yes.
amped because that's just what we live for, those kinds of shows.
Yeah,
and we knew there was going to be a good amount of people there. So it's like this show is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be fun. We're going to feed off the crowd really well. Essentially, it was just a floor show. The stage was maybe like 3 inches high.
Yeah, it was
and
rad.
there was only enough room for me to put my kit up there and the amps, so everybody else was on the floor.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like it just got wild, you know.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of shows that I think you'll never, like, once you're on a level like Underoath, not that they can't feel like it's just a different it's
Different world.
different level of operating, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that they still love playing shows like that, but they can't because they're Underoath, you know.
Yeah,
It
so
would be
the-
absolute chaos to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
Whereas if we play that show, it's like if the crowd's into us, like it's going to be absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it's gonna
Even
fit
if it's not
perfectly,
like completely packed out, you know.
yeah.
But those are the kinds of shows that we live for personally, and you know, I eventually we'll get to a level where it's like, or at least I hope.
Hopefully we'll get
that,
to a level
yeah,
where
that
it's,
like, well, you know, everybody
we
wants the
can-
Underoath
yeah.
dream. I feel, but it's
Yeah.
like either way, those are always going to be my favorite shows. You know,
Yeah,
there's an
yeah.
intimacy to it. Just like interacting with the crowd, so personal like that is just you can't.
You can't
It's-
replicate that.
It's
Like,
an experience
crazy.
that it's just something you have to experience.
Yeah.
in
I think
order
that's
to, like,
that's
fully
the
comprehend.
biggest challenge about playing like bigger venues and stuff is trying to take that experience onto the bigger stage.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and the people in the crowd to give them the same experience. It's way more challenging to do it on the bigger stage because like on the smaller stages and stuff, it's like you can throw your guitar around and whatever it,
At
it
that
matches
point-
the vibe.
At that point, though, if you're playing on stages that big, it's more about the production that you bring to the
Yeah,
stage,
production's
and that's why they all have like these insane like LED screens and lights
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Which is
you
rad.
know.
And the final question I wanted to ask you guys is, you're a band, you guys are from Tampa, Florida. Now, I mean, obviously being the home of Underoath, which, you know, but also, you know, the home of Trivium, so I feel like this, you know, that hardcore metalcore style is welcome there, but also being the death metal capital of the
yes.
world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Was there like a scene in Florida that you guys kind of cut your teeth in, or were you a band that kind of had to go outside your state lines in order to get your name out there further?
Funny you ask, because I hope we don't get flack for this either. But okay, so we definitely cut our teeth in the hardcore scene for sure.
Yeah.
But to me personally, and I think everybody in our band can agree, there's just it's a little cliquey,
Yeah.
and
It's like that in every scene.
yeah,
You're
I
not
feel
going to
like,
get backlash.
I feel like it's
Oh,
inevitable. But you know, for us, I just like people dug us for sure and still do, but it's just, you know, we don't. I feel like we've never really meshed with them very well, so we kind of had to go out of state.
A lot.
More so, or not even in Tampa, like more so, like we pull way more people in Orlando than we do Tampa, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it was just never really our thing in Tampa, I feel. It was for a time, and then
For a very short time.
But then, yeah, it just seemed like nobody started.
Like
nobody cared
everything
anymore.
everything started to go like more beat down and like actually crowd killing and stuff like that. And it's like
Yes.
when we play, it's different. Like it sucks because it is our hometown and there's still rad elements to it. Like, and you know, we do really well in St. Pete even,
And we
which
do
is
have-
like not that far.
And we
from
do have
Tampa.
fans in Tampa for sure.
Yeah.
Don't.
But like it's definitely, I think, more clicky, which is a bummer. But whatever, dude. Like
Yeah.
we're here endlessly thankful for everything that we get. So
Yeah.
And we're thankful for the few people that do like us in Tampa. Like that's so sick.
We had fans at the Manchester, New Hampshire show last week, and we've never played there.
Yeah, which is crazy. We
cool.
did this run in February with a band called Great American Ghost.
Oh, they're coming here next week.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, sick
dudes. Very sick band.
We had a show in Nebraska. We never played Nebraska.
No, that was the first time.
We got there, and there is at least, which this sounds pathetic compared to like everything that we've been talking about, like Underoath stuff, but there's like at least 10, 15 people for us there. We've never been there. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And like we can't even pull like 30 people in Tampa.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it. Don't edit that part out.
No, don't edit that.
Well, I mean, it's cool though that depending on where you play, that's also a different experience too.
Yeah, no, it's rad, dude. And like, I don't know. It just, we'll keep growing,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, I'd like to thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. You guys had a crazy 2018. 2019 is just on the horizon. What could we be expecting for the father-son record cycle from Limbs in 2019, if you're allowed to say?
Well, first
all
off,
we can really say is we got a tight tour at the beginning of the year,
yes,
and it will be announced soon.
there's a festival.
There's
announced.
RFS is announced. Yeah, we're playing RFS in February in Savannah, Georgia. We're actually
Mhm.
playing with Great American Ghost,
Mhm.
and Zayo's on the bill, which is sick.
Oh my God, they're so good.
Yeah,
I know, dude.
Yeah,
I
they're
know.
awesome. And then, I mean,
There's
every band is always writing,
yeah,
so we're
There's-
we're
there's-
writing new stuff. But
yeah. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot coming.
Next year,
It's
we're
gonna be
hoping
tight.
is going to be absolutely insane.
I had a hell of a time reviewing your current records, so I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with
Hopefully
next.
it's
yeah,
good.
Thank you guys so much. Everybody, we are here with Limbs. Pick up Father Son if you haven't already, and catch them in 2019. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York, everybody.
See ya.